It's all right. We are officially live.
Hey.
Hello, everybody. Happy Tuesday. Can't believe it is already December 17th. That is wild.
It is. The end of the year is quickly approaching. We are careening into 2025.
That is
Everybody
correct.
ready. Everybody hold on to your hat.
Exactly. And welcome, everybody, to our third episode of Higher Up. And we are just going to wait one more minute to allow people to join, and then we'll get started.
Good stuff. Want to talk about what we're talking about? Want to tell everyone what we're talking about today?
Yeah, let's do it. So today each episode we go over a common question we get from job seekers, a myth in the job search or a misconception, and then a job opportunity. So the question we're going over today is, what's the best way to do a 90-second intro in an interview? So also you might think of it as a way to answer the common question, tell me about yourself. And then the myth is going to be about like quality over quantity in the job search. And then we'll save the job opportunity till the end. But yeah, Perfect. We're excited to be here. And should we do intros, Lori? We did them on our first two, but do we think people know?
Does anyone care who we are? No, I'm just kidding.
I don't think so. The only thing I will say is it's fun to see where people are tuning in from. So
totally.
If you want to comment where you're tuning in from, please do. I'm in Austin, Texas.
I'm in Henderson, Nevada, which is just outside of Las Vegas.
Perfect. And then as we go through the topics, please comment and feel free to ask questions throughout the event. We'll get to as many questions as we can. And then if for some reason we don't get to yours, just feel free to follow up with Lori or myself one-on-one. But yeah, let's go ahead. Should we go ahead and just get started? We're 2 minutes over, so I think we should go for
I think so. I think we can slowly get into topic.
Yeah.
Coming.
But yeah, so that the first question, and this is just an FAQ we get from job seekers, best way to do a 90-second intro in an interview. And this is typically how you start an interview, so you do want to come out of the gate strong. Yeah. Lori, do you want to go first or do you want me to?
Yeah, let me give the tiny bit of context. This is coming from 26 years of recruiting and hiring in multiple corporate environments. So I want to start this by saying, first, a lot of this stuff is driven by, the conversations and debates that I see on LinkedIn or that I'm involved in on LinkedIn. And I definitely see that there's a negative perception about the question to begin with. I want to start there because, again, at the core of all of this advice is really mindset and how you energetically show up to things. So first, we have to detach from asking, tell me about yourself in an interview as the worst thing in the world. It's the most horrible, intrusive. How could they ask us this question? Specifically neurodivergent. That's my neurodivergence. Neurodivergent folks really don't like the open-ended space without any real clarity around what is being asked. So I want to give a little bit of color and structure to the question because it's not really an unstructured question. Okay. What I like about the question, tell me about yourself, is it's open space where you can share the best and most exciting things to highlight. You do not have to share things that make you uncomfortable. Okay. What makes people uncomfortable with this question is they aren't prepared for it. Okay. So what I call the tell me about yourself and the encapsulation of who are you as a candidate and what do you bring to the table? I call that your unique value proposition. If you listen to me in any of my content, I incessantly talk about UVP, unique value proposition, because it is the cornerstone and the center of your job search strategy, whether you realize it or not. Okay. This is a tough job market, right? We're not in the job market where talent is tough to come by and thus your efforts and your strategy become less important. You can be reactive in your job search when talent is scarce. That's not where we are today. I can throw a rock and hit 100 people who are qualified to do the job I'm recruiting for. That's truth. That's reality. Okay. So your UVP, the tell me about yourself, is like your core differentiator. It's what differentiates you from the other 1,000 applicants for this one job. Okay. I want to really like set the table, right? So we understand this from a very strategic perspective. We're not talking about philosophically what should be and the power imbalance that shouldn't be and boo capitalism, none of that, right? We're talking about what is and how can you leverage what is to be most effective and stand out. So UVP, tell me about
And
yourself.
one other thing I'm
Yeah.
going to add before you jump in, Lori,
Yeah.
is like you also you can expect this question in like 95% of your interviews. So it's
Right.
also like it's coming, so you
Yeah.
might as well be prepared. But sorry, go ahead.
100% be prepared. And again, start with not hating the question. It's super hard to show up and sound great about a question you hate at the core. That will actually show up too. Okay. And we're always going to ask it. And as a recruiter, the reason I ask it, I think this is also important to understand, is because giving you free reign and total open space with zero expectations for you to tell me about yourself, what you say tells me a lot about what you think about you, about how you see yourself, about how well you know yourself, about how well you understand how you add value in the world. Okay. So UVP, this should be a very structured phrasing or paragraph that you're able to practice a lot with people. I highly recommend doing mock interviews or using tools like Earn Better, but like practicing the answer to this question. So you want to make sure that you're encapsulating your experience and your unique, like what's unique about you, what's special about you. I'm incredibly strong when it comes to solving complex problems. The more complex the problem, the more creative I am in my solutioning. Like that's a powerful statement, right? Unique value proposition is not the time to be like, well, I was born in, the Bay Area of California 48 years ago. It's not the time to talk about the job you had 20 years ago. It's like an encapsulation of who you are today, what your journey has been, and how you've added the most amount of value throughout your career. If you don't know what that is, this is your opportunity. I find a lot of people don't know. I get on a lot of coaching calls and they're not clear how they add value. Right.
Mhm.
And so I really push people to be introspective here. Really write some stuff down. When have I start with where have I felt most successful in my career? Go to those points in your career. What about that experience made me feel really successful? What are some tangible deliverables? What are some very specific outcomes from those times? Write those down, right? This is prep work. Okay.
Mhm.
Knowing like at UiPath, I experienced, I helped guide the company through a 20x scale. I was the 43rd employee. And when I left 2.5 years later, we were over 1,000. That's mind blowing that's a lot of hires, right? But that's a data point that I share that I can share confidently that lands usually for,
Mhm.
wow, like that's intense. So you want to really think about what are the things that you've done in your career that are unique, that are special, and that are worth highlighting. Again, what you say and what you choose to highlight says a lot about you, your values, how you see yourself, and how aware you are of yourself. I'm going to pause because I know Molly has some awesome stuff to also share. But like
No,
that's really how I think about it.
I think you touched on a lot of it, but a couple things that I sort of just want to reiterate. So the importance of practicing it,
Yeah.
saying your response out loud, whether it's to yourself or to a friend, if you're like me, what you have envisioned in your head doesn't always come out as articulately as you would like. And again, this is how you're kind of setting the stage for the conversation. It's at the beginning. So it's, kind of managing your first impression. So I would say it's definitely worth the time practicing this and kind of getting it down. Also, outside of interviews, this could be something that you use in networking conversations or kind of like your elevator pitch.
Yes.
So it can be, kind of recycled in different conversations. And I think Laurie touched on it. Like, you want to keep it professionally focused. You don't want to go into too much detail again, and you don't need to talk about like where you're from or your dog or anything like that. But start with kind of a brief intro of who you are, some things that you've done professionally, maybe highlighting a couple of accomplishments or skills, things that you're proud of, and then connect it to the role that you're interviewing for and kind of why you'd be a good fit and why you're excited about it. But yeah, I think starting with a couple of bullets and then practicing your answer out loud, the first time you say it versus the third or fourth, you're going to see a huge difference and a huge improvement.
Totally. Here's a hack for everybody. So you don't have to use mine. I happen to have a custom GPT. So I have a chat GPT called the Rebel HR, and the Rebel HR, I've tuned and trained this AI to be able to help craft a unique value proposition. But you can use any AI, upload your resume, upload your about section or the link to your LinkedIn. It actually can go look at your LinkedIn, which is super cool. So your resume, your LinkedIn link, and any other supporting documentation, maybe like a really glowing recommendation letter from some third party would be really good. Throw those things up there and ask it to help you craft like 5 different UVPs. Oh, and the role that you're either a job or like I'm interviewing for roles like X. Help me craft some UVPs that make sense for that industry, for that focus area. And it will, and they're good. They're really good. What AI is great at is taking a lot of information and encapsulating it and distilling it into something that is easy to repeat and practice and articulate, right? Yeah.
Totally. I actually did one right before this and was like pretty impressed. Like you'd want to make a few tweaks, maybe streamline it a little bit, but to Laurie's point, like really good starting point. And oftentimes when we think about how do I talk about myself in 60 to 90 seconds, it's a little overwhelming. Like, where do I start? And, AI is a good tool for kind of getting you started on like, okay, here's some things I consider. How do I kind of want to order these? Might want to tweak it a little bit. But yeah, I think that's a great suggestion. Totally. And we also have a good question from Miles. Hey, Miles. Love this idea of talking about unique value proposition. What advice would you give to job seekers who have a diverse career experience and feel like they're having trouble narrowing it down?
Totally great question, Miles. That's an awesome question. So here's what I do. It's all part of the story, right? You're not talking about the specifics, but you can say like, I've had a 20-year career that's taken me from X industry to Y industry. I was able to do X, Y, and Z over here. Here's what the transition consisted of. In 2010, I moved from California to New York and I shifted into finance because that was a prevailing space, blah, blah, blah. And then I worked my way up in this, or I learned all about this, or I became a very competitive contributor around this. So the story, it's all about the story. And as we talked about in our last call, even if there are gaps in your career trajectory, it's still all part of the story. It's still all part of the story, and approach it really positively and as a learning opportunity or as a growth opportunity or whatever it is before they can perceive any of it negatively. Again, they'll only perceive your story the way you do. So like I said before, the UVP has to resonate. Everything you share has to like land for you first if you expect it to land for us.
Totally. And I think to add on to Miles's question, I think it's okay to talk about, the fact that you do have diverse experience, but what I would focus on is what's relevant to the role that you are interviewing for or the types of roles that you're looking for. So you might not want to touch on every single, type of role or job function that you've done, or all of the different types of responsibilities or skills if they are extremely varied. But you can say, I have a varied experience. I've done a lot of different functions, but this is what, I've been best at, or this is when I'm happiest, and this is what I'm looking for moving forward.
Or even here's what I'm doing now and how it lends to what you're looking for. And some of that experience I drew from the 10 years I spent over here. So it's like you mentioned that exists, and you bring one transferable skill over into the present.
Yeah.
Right? It's part of your story. You're proud of it. And you connect with a bridge. Everything is about connecting with a bridge, kind of.
Yeah, I like that. And Miles, let us know if we answered that, or if you have any follow-ups. We'd be happy to loop back to that.
Totally.
All right, Lori, anything else you'd want to add before we move on to the next topic?
Frankly, I could talk about UVPs and like how to represent yourself and the mindset shift and digging into who you are and really being able to articulate that powerfully to people. I could talk about that stuff for hours. So, but we should, probably cut it here for this opportunity. But I would like to address this again in the future. I think it's a really critical piece. And I think if people could perfect one single thing in the job search, it's how they talk about themselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think, what you've touched on time and time again, which couldn't be more true, is how you feel about it and how you show up to talk about it. That comes through. So like if you're feeling defeated, the person on the other end of that conversation picks up on it. So,
Totally.
Get yourself prepared. Make sure you feel confident in how you're talking about yourself, and that you're proud of those experiences and how you're talking about yourself, because that really does come through.
And even if it's positive, that also has to land. Like if you pay $500 to somebody to write your UVP and it's full of glowing, awesome stuff, but it doesn't resonate with you because you didn't write it and it didn't come from you, that also is going to come across. So like, again, you have to believe what you're sharing, no matter what it is you're sharing. And
Totally. Okay. For sake of time, we'll move on to the second topic. So this is kind of, I guess, our myth or misconception of the day. And it's, you should prioritize quantity over quality when it comes to submitting job applications, which is something I see a lot of discussion on everywhere. Lori, you want to kick us off, or do you want me to go first?
Go, you feel free, because I don't want to snag all your talking points, but yeah, I'll fill in.
Okay, cool. So I do not agree with that statement, but I do think it sort of depends on your strategy as a job seeker. So I don't personally suggest this as a strategy, but if you are only relying on submitting job applications as a way to secure interviews, then the answer would be yes. You're going to have to pump out a lot more volume to get an interview. Like as Lori mentioned earlier, in today's market, it's really competitive. It's an employer's market. Candidates have to submit a lot more applications than they would, say, in 2021 when it was a candidate's market.
Yeah.
However, if it were me, I would suggest being a bit more strategic and focused in your search. So, instead of applying to like 40 or 50 jobs per week, which I think is unsustainable, I would aim for, maybe 4 or 5 or whatever, a lower number, but high quality opportunities. But then I would use the rest of my time, the balance of my time, to be more strategic. So trying to have networking conversations, finding potential referrals at companies that I'm interested in, just getting the word out there about what I'm looking for and what I'd be a good fit for. I would still apply to jobs. Like I'm not saying you shouldn't be doing that at all. I would just be selective and looking for jobs that I'm a really good fit for and that I'm really interested in, and then figuring out how I can stand out for those opportunities. Because in general, I think it's going to be pretty hard to get a job if you're just submitting outbound applications. If that's your main lever or tactic, it's going to be difficult. I'm not saying it's not possible, but I do think you would need to submit quite a few. And so I would try to think of, more creative ways that you could have conversations that lead to opportunities versus just, banging out 100 applications in a given week. But Lori, would love to hear your perspective.
Can I be really real here, Molly?
Absolutely.
Okay. So as somebody who reviews the hundreds and hundreds of applications you all are like throwing out and just spraying and praying about, it looks that way. Like there's a disconnect between like the application, the resume, the cover letter, the answers that you have to give, the questions you answer in those text boxes, which almost all apps have now today. You have to like pre-answer interview questions in the application. So like when you're sending out 50 a week, I can tell. I believe very strongly that the law of diminishing returns, and Molly knows I think this way, applies very much to job search. Okay. If the truth is that just applying for jobs, like just applying online and that's it, just sending the application out, does check a box and makes you feel better that you're doing the thing, but it's not, it has an incredibly low payoff, really low rate of return. So I say, here's a litmus test. Here's how you know if you're sending out too many applications. When you start getting rejections back and don't even remember that you applied to that place, that's like a really good litmus test. Or even worse, they reach out and say, hey, yeah, we want to talk to you, and you don't remember applying to the job. So like you should put enough energy and focus into each job you apply to that you will remember, that it's like it resonates with you when you hear the company name. Like I wouldn't apply to a single job without taking a 5-minute gander on the company's site information, their career page, get a feel for the culture. Like you can like be more targeted and focused, and you'll get less rejections. So there's less defeat, and there's like you'll have a more positive experience. I think that's my approach. Again, a lot of people out there cry about how job search is a numbers game. I don't know that I fully agree with that in this market. The volume is too high for that to be like a strong strategy. Okay. Because once you apply, if there's, say, I really like this job, I really want this job, I've looked on the company site for 5 minutes. I'm not talking about hours per role. Like I've seen a lot of ridiculousness out there. Like, I don't have time. You're not working. So for 40 hours a week, at least you have to job search if you chose to, because that's not spent jobbing, right? Or whatever. So like, you know, really take the time, 5 minutes, but like look at so I really want this job. I align with the culture, I align with their mission. I looked at who works there. Those look like great people that I would work well with. Yay. Apply, go find connections, go do the networking, go send a note to a couple strategic people, reach out to people that you are connected to who might be connected to that company. Like put some effort in. You want to know what I do? I mean, I'm bolder than average, and I don't recommend this for most because it's authentic for me, but like I called out a company publicly and was like, I really want this job now. And I was like, network, who all knows anybody at this company? And I did end up talking to them. I didn't get the job, but that doesn't matter. I made enough splash to get the chief marketing officer, on the phone and to be able to have a conversation about me and about the company. And that's really cool. It was Invisible Technologies, if anyone wants to know. But the point is that, one of the things I do when I identify who likely is the hiring manager or somebody adjacent to the role that I want that would be somewhat connected, I start looking at them on LinkedIn, not the jobs that they're posting, but like they posted an article yesterday about whatever in their industry. I go comment on the art. So I go start like engaging with people. It's not just send a DM to the inbox where they have 500 DMs about a job. Like that, it's more than that. It's being seen and heard. It's making yourself visible by having real engagement on that person's whatever, or somebody that's represented in the company. develop a little bit of a relationship, then reach out by DM and be like, hey, I've really enjoyed engaging with you over the last week. Like, I would really love to be considered. I see that you guys have you must work for an awesome company. I don't even say like that I did any of it intentionally. You must work for a really great company. I see they're hiring a director of talent, and I actually am in the market for director of talent roles. Like, if other people in the company are as awesome as you, I'd love to talk to somebody about this position. I just made them feel great. I just like,
Yeah.
one, it's take the opportunities, be creative, be sincere and genuine, and engage with people.
And
Yeah.
you can only do that if you are more focused in your search, because you can't do that if you're applying to 50 roles in a week. Like, that's just impossible. But if you find the couple that are actually really good fits that you're really interested in, and then you can be creative in how you do those inroads, that is sustainable. And I also think it's going to pay more dividends than just lobbing out countless applications.
And if you don't believe us, do an A/B test with yourself. 1 week, send out your typical 50 and do nothing else. And then the next, and don't do it these weeks around Christmas. Like, that's goofy. Like, after January 6th, take 1 week, do your 50, spray and pray, don't do anything else. And then the very next week, pick 7 or 8 or whatever, a number that you can research, where you can make inroads with particular individuals in the company, actually like intentionally engage in various different ways, and see see if the results are different. But even beyond that, see if you feel differently about it, because I would bet that you'll feel more connected to the activity you've done, and that you'll feel better about the potential outcomes. It'll also hurt a little more when you get rejected. I'm not going to lie. If you put a little more energy, but you've got to like take away that this is a personal thing. They're not judging you and you personally. It's a piece of paper against 500 other pieces of paper. Like, it's not you and it's not personal. So you have to like also be ready for, if I put 10, 15, 20 minutes of effort in and I get a rejection email, it'll sting a little more than the one I didn't even remember applying for. So what? Trust me. Try it out. Just see.
Yeah, I think that's good advice. All right. So I'm looking through some of the comments. We have someone that said, thank you for the suggestion, Lori. Great advice for tell me about yourself. Agree. It is something you should practice before the interview. Could not agree more on that. And we have someone who said, looks like healthcare recruiters are in demand. Is it a good time to switch from tech to healthcare?
Healthcare is always in demand. So healthcare is always a good industry to try to find a bridge into. Like, yes, if you can handle some of the bureaucracy involved. I personally could not handle working in the healthcare industry, because I'd want to fix all that's broken, and it would be every day, and it wouldn't be good. Also, yes, the Rebel HR is under construction, my website. You can reach out and connect with me by LinkedIn. I'm very active on LinkedIn. It's super easy to connect with me by LinkedIn.
Perfect.
And then I do want to highlight a company real quick. We have 2 minutes, 3 minutes left. So I was working on this in October. Again, we have some roles with a company called 1220. They're an ed tech company similar to Handshake, and they sell their platform of technology tools into universities that help their students get placed and find jobs later. So companies post their jobs on 1220, and they get connected to the students by the career services function. Right now we've got a couple customer success and account management roles, fairly similar. Anybody with an ed tech background, anybody with an HR tech background I can talk to, especially if you sold into or were working with campus recruiting teams. And then anybody from like kind of the career services world inside of a university. So you're working inside of, Georgia State, and you are the associate director of career services, and you want to pivot into more of a tech world, because academia is a unique world. That all of those are potentials, not just any customer success experience. It has to align to one of those things. Great company, by the way, really solid training and growth opportunity.
Awesome. Thanks for highlighting that, Lori. Y'all get in
Yes.
touch with Lori if you're interested. We had one more question. I know we're almost at time, but how to close your profile against job description? I'm not 100%. Do you mean like how to compare your profile against a job description and how well you might be like suited for that?
I think earn better tools would be like the answer for this, probably. I'm guessing.
I think
And
so, if I'm understanding it correctly. Daniel, if you are talking about kind of understanding if your resume is a good match for like a specific job description, we've got free tools that will help you kind of think about additional like keywords or skills that you could add to your resume to help strengthen it before you apply. If you have any questions about that, feel free to reach out to me.
yep.
All right. I think we answered all the questions. I'm just scrolling through real quickly to see if there's anything else. I had somebody say they watched one of my YouTube videos on missing a deadline. If you go to the we have a channel on YouTube, and I will go over like common interview questions and how to
Yeah,
answer
yeah.
them. So glad
Very
to
cool.
hear people are watching those and that they're helpful.
Also, if you have any ideas or things you want us to cover, just ping us. Like, because we're, we choose just a week or two before our call. So happy to address specific things for anybody.
Totally.
But yeah, and in closing, happy holidays and happy Kwanzaa and Merry Christmas and happy Hanukkah and happy winter and solstice and whatever in the world you resonate with. Happy that.
Agreed. And sending everybody best wishes for the new year. And we
Yeah.
will see y'all in the new year. Thank you for joining us today.
Bye, y'all.
Bye-bye. Okay.